For those three groups, ultra small, small, and high volume, what advice would you give them as a strategy to enter Vietnam? Let's start with the ultra small.
Well, the ultra small, a little bit issue with ultra small if they think that, by sitting at home and finding one cool product to sell online, they can buy it off the factory at the same price as a big brand could buy. But of course it's not possible because the factory itself has to buy raw materials in lower volume at much higher costs. And so these people have to realize they cannot buy the same product as a brand of the factory at the same price. And most of them don't realize that. They think that the factory is producing something all the time, and whether it's produced in large volume or small volume is the same price.
I believe that China has evolved to where they can serve that type of business model because they just figured it out how to do it. Where, like, let's say they're producing 100,000 bottles for a customer, and they produce an additional 20,000. So they make 120,000. They have to sell the 100,000 to the confirmed buyer, and then they very quickly make available that additional 20,000 bottles, and they put it on Alibaba, for example, and people can go onto Alibaba, and it just happens to be exactly what they want, and they order 50, 100, 5,000, So China has evolved and been able to make that business model work, but Vietnam is not there yet. But then the other side, so how can you make that happen in Vietnam? And that is, if you can come over here and live over here and camp out at the factories or build relationships and every day check in and say, hey, you just got an order for such and such. Can you make an additional 1,000 for me? And if you have a good relationship with that factory and it's not violating intellectual property rights, sure, the factories have no problem, producing an extra 500,000, 5,000, whatever. But you got to be in the right place at the right time and have the right relationships. And that's not something you're going to do sitting at your computer, in a different time zone on another continent.
I think it's very true. If you want, a water bottle or a mug or cutlery or lighters or something which is not brand specific for sure, but actually what's manufactured in Vietnam is mostly for brands. And historically, Vietnam was only like a manufacturing hub. Where overseas manufacturers from Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and so on were making the productions, but they weren't sourcing fabrics, they weren't selling the products, they weren't developing products. So historically, this is what Vietnam, 80% of the factories were just manufacturing one certain product and they never had to source or develop. This is also why they're not look to find other outlets for their products. It's changing now with the new industries coming up, but it's still, I think, a majority of the factories have this history.
So basically, we don't have an Alibaba. We don't. I think Alibaba actually encompasses Vietnam, but there's very little presence on.
Well, every
Alibaba.
time you source a product, you can see China, and then maybe sometimes Philippines, Vietnam, somewhere else, somewhere.
What about small volume buyers? So these are established brands that have been like family brands that have been around for generations. They've been producing in China. They're doing maybe 1 or 2 containers a month. They got a solid business. They just want to investigate what's possible in Vietnam. What strategy would you recommend to them?
Well, they have to come here and find the one right partner. Really, they need to find 1 or 2 workshops they can work and grow with, rather than try to get prices from many and put people into competition. And this is true in general in Vietnam. It's more a question of establishing a relationship with a few suppliers or one supplier rather than price fishing.
Price fishing or trying to replicate your 5 supplier supply chain in China all at once in Vietnam.
Sure.
Yeah.
So my advice would be, come here, spend some time in here initially to find who are the people that you click with, that you can really have a long-term relationship with, and then build from that.
Would you recommend going to Hanoi first or going to Ho Chi Minh City first?
If it's a bulk outerwear, heavy industries is in the north. and not much available in the south. Everything else, I think, you should come to the south.
Yeah. And this is where like our insider knowledge can be of benefit. For example, when it comes to leather, I recently had a customer ask me to identify leather factories in Vietnam, and I found like 10. 6 out of the 10 are here in Ho Chi Minh City, so nice options. But there were 4 in Hanoi that ended up being the best quality. So, I mean, if you talk to me first and you tell me you're doing leather products, I might recommend Hanoi first. But then if you're doing sportswear or circular, basic garments using circular knitted fabrics, then definitely Ho Chi Minh City would be the place to start. So,
well, I think it's easier for a newcomer to start doing business in Ho Chi Minh City, just because of the environment, facility of communication, and the distances are smaller to the factories and so on. So I would recommend find first a supplier in Ho Chi Minh City, and then once you're doing business here, look out for another supplier in Hanoi. Then you have both the best of both worlds.
Exactly. So let's talk about the Walmarts, Auchan, Sportmaster, El Corte Inglés, even like Lego. Lego just recently broke ground to start their new factory. So they've got literally millions of dollars, and they're looking to come into Vietnam in a big way. What advice do you have for them to start off their strategy?
Well, I would definitely, they probably need a larger plant. It's cheaper to set up, rentals are cheaper in the north, mostly provinces, because there's more land available. It's closer to China, most probably still a lot of raw materials will come either from China or Taiwan. So I would definitely recommend them to look north.
Doing business in Vietnam is like anywhere else in the world, and having a broker, an insider, somebody who has specific experience about how to set up a company, how to establish yourself legally and do the market research quickly is valuable. What's your opinion about hiring a broker, as opposed to someone like industry expert, right? We're industry experts, but there are brokers for almost every industry in Vietnam.
There are, but it's not like in China where they're much more proficient, and they're not that easy to find here either. So my recommendation is anybody like Lego, for example, they want to start manufacturing in Vietnam. We had the same thing experience with a big French company making lighters and razors. So they wanted to come in and put up a factory right away. And I recommended to them, no, start off by outsourcing some of the products to an existing factory. Let a local factory that's already established, that has machines that could do your product, make your product first. And then you start to understand what the pros and cons and the difficulties are of manufacturing in Vietnam. Once you know this, once you have that experience of 1 or 2 years, then set up your factory. That's what I would recommend.
For like the high volume companies like Walmart, and they typically want to set up an office here. Maybe set up a representative, legally set up a representative office, put everybody on work contracts, hire people, and then have everybody having official work contracts. What advice do you have for any business that from the very beginning they know they're going to open up an office here?
Well, most of them will go to a large law firm and ask them for help. That costs them thousands and thousands of dollars, and they will deal with people who legally know a lot about the country, but actually in the particular industry don't know anything. So it's not going to be very helpful. I've experienced it so many times, and then they come to me saying, I need somebody who knows really the ins and outs, and can avoid us losing a lot of time. One of the services we offer is hosting. A lot of companies are curious about Vietnam. They hear from everybody that it's interesting. When they go directly to ask for costs, they realize it doesn't sound that interesting at first.
Right.
We know that. All the prices you get are always more expensive than what you get in China.
Exactly.
There are reasons for that. We can discuss it later. But so they're hesitant. So what we offer is a solution where we can dedicate staff that we hire specifically for them, or we use some of our existing staff, dedicated part-time or full-time, and it's totally flexible. We can grow them or shrink them very fast. We provide also space for them to work in, and of course all the support they would need at the management side to make the business or their project successful. It's like a stepping stone. So we offer the stepping stone solution, which means they don't have to invest, they don't have to set up any capitals, they don't have to risk their name by setting up a rep office or whatever, as a first testing ground for exploring the possibilities in Vietnam. That's safer for them, and this is something that's a formula which is quite successful with us. But now some companies think that because they've done it in many other countries, they can come to Vietnam and do it again. Of course they can, and there are pros and cons, but they will most probably deal with people who on the legal side are very good, are going to cost a lot of money, but on the practical side have no idea what they're doing.
Right. The analogy I like is buying a cup of coffee. I mean, if you live here in Vietnam and you know the market, you know that you can get a decent cup of coffee for 50 cents on the street, or you can go pay $5 at Starbucks. So it makes sense to spend some time here and realize that you have other options besides Starbucks. And it might take some time to figure that out, but they are here. You know, there's the expensive ways to do things, and then there's the, let's say, normal ways to do things.
Are you losing customers because your production in China or India is delayed or failing quality control inspections? Can you see how producing in Vietnam will save your business?
Are you ready to work directly with Vietnamese manufacturers?
When is a good time to get price quotes and samples made in Vietnam to restock your shelves? Hi, my name is Chris. My mission is to connect 100 brands around the world with 100 factories in Vietnam so that everybody can earn a fair profit.
Hi, my name is Yuli. I am Chris' Vietnamese teacher and also research assistant.
Yuli and I both live here in Ho Chi Minh City. Yuli was born in Vietnam and I've lived here for 13 years. We are your dream team to find the right factory fast for you in Vietnam.
Our unique selling point is that we introduce you directly to the factories.
We introduce you to factories that suit your needs. I have personally visited over 100 factories in Vietnam, and Yuli is excellent at finding needles in a haystack by searching online.
I am also fashion startup, which inspired me a lot. Now I know how to produce small quantity using mom and pop workshop. Soft fabric by the meter and get 3D images for product listing on my e-commerce platform, all at affordable Vietnamese price points.
If you are a startup or an established brand, get started today in Vietnam. Either start by reading one of my do-it-yourself ebooks, take one of my online courses, join one of our weekly webinars, hire us for factory tours, or schedule a factory introduction and consulting session.
Welcome to Vietnam, and remember,
thoughts are things, and where there's a will, there's a way. So what action will you take today to move production to Vietnam? Yuli and I are here to help you. Thanks for listening and have a wonderful day.